There's a couple other demos. One of them, we actually took Google, we took Oracle. We took an Oracle warehouse, we wrapped XBRL Global Ledger around it, and then we queried it with Google OneBox. So what I'm saying to you is, instead of going and getting an IT guy to write queries you don't understand, you can actually sit in a Google frame and write your own queries in business language. It changes the way that you access data. If you combine that with that Excel template idea I gave you earlier, this is a completely new paradigm for how you get information out and how you share information that is embedded in a bunch of ERP systems. There's a lot of other resources here and demos that I would encourage you to go look at. The SEC has proposed a rule to mandate XBRL. It kicks off for the Fortune 500 for periods ending after December 15th, 08. The first year they tag their financial statement tables and the notes as block text, meaning here's my inventory note, here's my fixed assets note, etc. In year 2, they have to tag the notes in detail. So year 1 is something you could probably do manually. Year 2, it's really about changing your business process. There's lots of resources to help you with this. There's free training courses, blah, blah, blah. But the point that I would emphasize to you is that now is not too early to start. Now, here's the kicker. Many of you are sitting there thinking about, this is just another SEC compliance mandate that's a pain in my neck. Not the case. There's several ways you can implement this. You can outsource it to a printer or a third party. There's one here called tryxbrl.com. They've already tagged the company's financials for them. It's one of those intermediaries. They've already done the hard lifting. The companies just have to go in and kind of correct the errors. Maybe 20% of the things wrong, they have to fix that. You can also tag it what's called a bolt-on by tagging your report at the end of your supply chain. Again, like putting the barcode on at the inventory shelf. Or you can begin to push it back into your process. Let me show you how that process works. Now, this is a picture of a company called United Technologies, but it's the way every company's compliance processes work today. You've got ERP systems on the left, you've got a consolidation application in the middle, and the first thing you do is you spit the information off into Microsoft Office, Word and Excel. That's where you do the assembly. You assemble the report, but you're also using Microsoft spreadsheets up there where it says supplemental data. That's political correctness for spreadsheet hell. Okay, that's a big problem. And I only have 6 here, but most companies have tens or thousands of these spreadsheets used to aggregate note disclosures. You can automate that using the Excel worksheet example I gave you a minute ago. That same example is one you can use right now today or your clients can use. Once it goes into Microsoft Office, most people take these documents and they distribute them to everybody on the review committee. That's the same process they used 50 years ago. Why are they still doing it that same way? Well, United Technologies isn't. What they've done is they've used XBRL and they've pushed the whole thing into one process. In this process, it's interesting to note that we have debits and credits coming through the consolidation application. We have everything else coming through spreadsheets. They've changed that paradigm. They've pushed everything in to the consolidation application. And they've also enabled XBRL to help them do a collaborative review process. So you remember I said earlier, show me inventory, everything related to inventory, show me everything related to income taxes? Well, that's something they're doing right on top of their consolidation application. They're using XBRL and an application called Clarity to actually render these so that everyone can look at the same document. You can almost think of it like a Wikipedia site. So instead of distributing the documents, we're using internet technologies so that everyone comes and uses a Wikipedia site to review the document within the company. A completely different process environment, that's the whole point. We're no longer using paper, we're using information, and we're using the tools to process that in a more efficient manner. Now, Wakola and Fujitsu are 2 large companies that have actually gone and pushed it back all the way to the ERP systems, and in so doing, they've created a much more efficient environment. They can access that transaction layer, they can answer that question, how many widgets did I sell, and the controllers can actually see what's going on at the transaction level. In many companies, all I get is a trial balance. I met with a large company in Detroit. They purchased a big company in Europe a few years ago. They still didn't have access to the underlying transaction systems. All they got was a monthly trial balance. That's sort of a problem. That's sort of a problem. But that's the way it is in most companies today because we're in the pre-Henry Ford era production line. In fact, if you think about it, consumers in our production line They're responsible for everything. It's almost like I get a raw piece of steel that I have to beat into a bumper and then put it on the car. I'm not giving my suppliers enough information to allow them to know what the specifications are for my bumper, so that when I get the information, it's valid, it's complete, and it's got an analytics done so I can just put it on the car. Well, that's what's happening at United Technologies and also Fujitsu. And if I didn't mention it, United Technologies pulled about 25% of the cost and time of their reporting processes out of the process. So it was a 25% cost reduction. It was not a cost increment. It's because they pushed the tagging, they pushed the structure back into their supply chain. So here's some practical ways that you could actually leverage this, or your clients could leverage it. One is accessing data from disparate ledgers, subledgers, etc., like I just explained about Fujitsu. You could also use it to access data across a wide range of applications. Maybe it's your clients. I mean, we've applied this to ledgers and done compliance testing. Things that currently take us 100 hours now take us 100 seconds. So a completely different model. Reporting, in terms of looking at information in a wide variety of ways, pretty powerful. And then the knowledge sharing point, in terms of exposing information that's relevant to your staff, your partners, your managers, in a way that's very contextual to the information they're disclosing. So I'm going to close with another story. I talked earlier about 34 years ago at the Barcode. The history lesson is why, our parents told us to pay attention in history class. 40 years ago, in the Netherlands, they introduced the idea of containerization. Well, at that point in time, Rotterdam and the Port of New York City were tied for third place in terms of the largest ports in the world. At this point in time, the Dutch embraced containerization. And you can see in this map, at 40 years ago, the port was in the middle of the city. It took them 14 days to load and unload a ship. Today, it takes them 14 hours to load and unload a ship that's 100 times larger, and they physically migrated the port over the last 40 years all the way out to the North Sea. I used this analogy 2 years ago when I presented at the Dutch conference. And afterwards, at most conferences, a few interested people come up to me. But in the Netherlands, I was mobbed by 30, 40 people. And the question they all had was, how did you know that it was our anniversary of containerization this week? And I was thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me. You guys are celebrating containerization? Well, in fact, they had, because it was such a big deal to their economy. It allowed them to be the third largest port today in the world. So the question I would ask you is, what happened in New York? Well, in New York City, the longshoremen convinced the city of New York to build a state-of-the-art longshoremen's pier, $40 million. Today, that pier is called Chelsea Pier. It still exists. It's an amusement park. There are no port facilities in the city of New York. It doesn't exist. So what's at stake for us as a profession is simply this. How do we define ourselves? Are we longshoremen who define ourselves based on manual physical labor? Or are we in the logistics business? Do we define ourselves based upon the value we bring to the table, the value we create for our clients and our staff, and the intellectual property we bring to the marketplace? That's what's at stake. XBRL is a way for us to leverage that, move it onto the internet, and make our entire profession more relevant. What you can do is listed here. Basically, educate yourself on what this means to your business processes, implement it as soon as possible, roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, play with it. As soon as you start playing with it, you'll understand this changes the game. This changes the game. We rolled out an analytical platform in PwC for an amount that wasn't even on our budget. It was that small. We didn't have any training. There was no memo from the Grand Poobah. But today, 12 months later, it's the #1 product being used within our infrastructure by a factor of 5. This is a better mousetrap. It allows your professionals to do things they literally cannot do today. And I would encourage you to kind of start using it to the best you can. I'd be happy to take any questions, but I really appreciate the time to talk with you about this today. And I encourage you to learn more about XBRL and implement it within your firms. Thank you very much, Greg. Loretta.